next up is that I want to test my sign in route. So in our sign in also we're gonna be doing pretty much the same thing. So in here I will just do a simple connection and then drop a database or do some creation of something. So I'm gonna hit up my describe again. So to just make this much up here, I'm gonna set up my describe, and I will say this my describe, it's about sign in. This block is for sign in, so I will just also have a simple function here, and in this function we'll have a before block, and this will just clean up and set up sign in. And it usually takes a done like previously we did, so it will take a done after it's complete. Next up we will connect to our mongoose with our connection string. So I'll pass it my connection string that we set up there, and then next is we'll pass it a callback, and in here I will just do mongoose dot connect connection dot db, and then we'll drop our database. And dropping the database, instead of to call down there, we'll not call down. Instead we'll go ahead and create a user. So for example, before we will sign in, we would like to create a user. We want to isolate our tests, so we clean up, we drop the database. So when we did sign up here, it's not gonna affect our current test here, because we're cleaning up the database. That's the good thing about database. So but we're gonna create a user, but we need this user from our mongoose models. So now here we can then simply import our user model from mongoose there. So in our models we'll import our user. So we'll import it from models slash user. So I got my user there, and in here I can easily then create so I will create, and this is we can still make use of this user here, because as you remember we're dropping the database. So actually we can just take this and create a user here. So we can see we're trying to create a user with alpha and pass like this. So if we have that because the user that create takes a callback. So this callback, this one takes like a function, right? If you did remember, it takes a function with arrow as the first argument, and the second argument is the response. Because it's following this convention, we can actually, instead of call a callback and then check arrow and this, we can just simply pass it this method done, kind of functional programming of continuous passing, and then when we have that into the done method there, it will then check, was there an error? If there was an error, it will throw an exception and then crash our test, so it will fail. And if we do that setup, next is that we will then come after our before block. We can then have an iteration for our test. We can say this is for API slash auth slash sign in, and then I can then call a function here that will take a done, and then in this done I will make my just like a request, pass it the app, set it to post, and then I can say API slash auth slash sign in, So I'll sign in here, and then because it's a post request, we have to send it data. So all I'll be doing is that I'll be setting this to this. So I will just send in what I need for it. So I'll send in the email and the password. Next is I want to do some expectations. I want to expect that it should be, it should not fail, it should sign in correctly. So in here I will expect 200, and then when I end this, I will take a function that will take in an error and a response. So in here I will just do the same thing. If error, then it should just, if there was an error, we can just say return done with the error. But if everything worked out fine, then we'll expect that it should return back a token. So if we did remember in our auth routes, when we sign in, we usually return a token here, and this token is a session ID, which is a string. So we expect that our response.body.token should be a string. So I can use the should library here as we expect, and then say response.body.token dot should be like string. So it's just a basic way. When I say be a string, it's just a basic way to like do some assertions in like to look a little bit like we're doing it in English. So in here we'll just call the done. So in here now we can see that yes, we set this up, and then we can then easily run our test. So to run our test here again, we can then come back here, say npm test. So what do we have here? So cannot override user model once compiled. So the reason for this error didn't have anything to do with our test. This is just us importing something, but Mongoose does some catching of models, and if we use some different kind of names, Mongoose will treat them as different names. So if you see here, we did import this with a small letter, the user with a small letter, but in here we imported it with a capital letter. So if we'll change this back to user like a small letter, so Mongoose is gonna have a catch of all of them, as the same thing. Or we can either change this to an uppercase and then also change this to uppercase, so that they can have the same catches. So if we come back here and then come and run our test again after we change that, we run our test, and we can see that we have two tests passing and this console.log, which looks kind of pretty ugly there. We'll take that out because, and then we can then come back and then run our test, and it should be very clean and it even tells you how many milliseconds it took to run. The sign up took long, so it has some red here and say, oh, maybe it took pretty much longer than it should take.